Okay, here we are at the start of the Battle of Longships, Wrath of the Vikings. The Saxons have one unit on the table at the game start, and then throughout the game they will get reinforcements as the rules dictate, but that's the sole unit on table at the moment. Now, interestingly, that unit might not actually be there. The Saxon player can decide to move that unit to any other building square around the table, of which there are several, or to woodland, where it would be concealed from the enemy. So there is a little bit of cat and mouse that can be had, whereby the Saxon player can lure, or the defender can lure the attacker on into a position that hopefully he can strike from. But most importantly, the object for the attacker is to loot and pillage the village and these village squares here, of which there are 12. In this game, the Vikings are attacking, and they roll randomly for one unit to be off table, which will be their reinforcements, and 4 units to be on table. And you roll a d6 and put each unit in that square. If you there's only 1 unit allowed per square in this game. So this is what we've rolled. We've rolled a 1, a 2, a 5, and a 6. So this is where the Vikings are landing. They're assumed to have come on and found the village, possibly have landed some ships further off down here somewhere, and then these are assumed to be ships' crews. At the moment, we've just got this one Saxon unit here about to raise the alarm and try and stop the Vikings from plundering the village, finding loot which can consist of locals that the attackers might take off. There could be loot such as coins and treasure. There could be livestock offered up, or there could be a gift from the god, which might be a fingernail of St. Cuthbert, and a religious relic. It could be the local priest. It could be a crown, the crown of England, for instance. But we'll see what happens there. But what we'll do then is, similar to the last AK video I did, we'll play through the first turn to show you the various mechanisms of how these troops move, how they shoot, how they fight, most importantly how they search to try and find. And these little tokens here are just search tokens. So once a building square has been searched, that's removed to say that we can't search in that square anymore. So you might find something, you might find nothing, but you can only search that square, successfully search the square once. If you fail to carry out a search action, you carry on until you pass the search action. But once you've successfully passed that search action, if there's nothing in the square, then there's nothing in the square and nothing in the buildings. But this is where we will find out. So we have Borghild, the Viking leader. He has joined this unit in this square, and as I've said, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll come back and I'll show you how this game works. Hope you like the look of this table. It's a fairly basic one, but I think it looks okay. Okay, so let's start this thing. So each unit will activate and carry out all of its actions before moving on to the next unit. Now then, there's a very interesting mechanic here. So what we'll do, I think, is start with this unit here, because it's got the general with it and it's already in a building. So Every unit at the start of a turn, let's see if I can just pop this down so we can capture the action as it happens. Here's my Peter Pig dice tray. Every unit at the start of turn has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 action dice. It's going to roll these dice. Dependent on what action it wishes to take, there will be a target number, which you can see here. So an easy action, such as marching into the open, changing formation, or in and out of shield wall or swinehead, which are specific formations, is an easy target. So let's say I want to do an easy action. I roll my 6 dice, looking for one result of a 3, 4, 5 or 6. And I get 1. I only need 1. Multiples don't matter. But the important thing is, once I've done that, I can carry out the action. So it might be, for instance, this unit here marching into the open, because these are in march column, or in a march formation, a movement formation. It's not Napoleonics, obviously. These are ship's crews who are just wanting to get somewhere quickly, so they just form this sort of column, so they'll march into this open ground. The important thing is they've achieved that 1, 3, and what they do now is take 1 dice away and they're left with 5 dice, and they can carry on acting until either they've ran out of dice or they've failed to score at least 1 of the numbers required. A failure to achieve that 1 score means it's the end of the turn for that particular army or side. So what we're going to do is show you, I've seen a crush there from my knee surgery a few weeks ago now. Happily to report I no longer require it to get around. So there we go. I'll just move this so you can see the unit. Buildings are only representative. But we do have a search marker, which means we can search in this square. Now, if there's an enemy unit in proximity to the square that this unit's in, they're not able to search, but happily there isn't one. It's the first square to be searched. So looking at the factors then, so to carry out a search, we need a 5 or a 6. So we start, as I said, with 6 dice. Try not to make this too jerky. We start with 6 dice. Now, if a unit is superior, i.e. it's got 3 or more armoured bases, it adds an extra dice. If it's an inferior unit, which means it's got 3 or more levy bases, it loses a dice, and those will cancel each other out if you have 3 of each. If there is a general with the unit, you do add a dice, and there is a general with the unit, so we can add a dice. If there's no leader with the unit, you lose 2 dice. And if you're carrying some plunder, you will lose a dice. And there's also morale effects or fatigue effects, which might mean that you lose some dice as well. But the aim of this game is to search and find plunder, and that's exactly what these Vikings are going to do. However, it is a difficult task. It's a 5 or 6 to search, as you can see there. But we've got 7 dice, so there shouldn't be a problem. And now we can see we've got 2 6s and a 5. So there's actually 3 successes. You only need 1. So there you go. That is a successful search. So what we'll do is we'll take that dice out. That means there's only 6 dice left. Now, interestingly enough, to actually find something, we need to roll as many dice as there are bases in the unit, including the general, and we've got 9. So to actually find something, we need to roll 9 dice. I'm just going to leave this dice here to remind me that there's 6 dice in the action dice pool. We've got 3, 6, 9 dice. 1 6 required to actually find something. And there'll be no surprise to anybody that knows me. There's not a single 6. So what that means is that there's nothing in that square to be found. So we've successfully carried out the action to search. So we have searched, but there's nothing there. So we'll take away this marker. And that unit is now free to carry on moving or activating. So what it can do is, because this is a grid-based game, it doesn't matter which way they're facing, they are in what's called a battle line at the moment. They can move into the next square along. So they're going to have a look in these stores here, or they need to move there actually, first of all. So we know that there's 6 dice for the action dice. And if we look at our sheet, to move into cover as a medium action. So it's a 4, 5 or 6. So we've got 6 dice. Let's pop those 2 out so they don't get confusing. Needing 1, 4, 5 or 6, and we get 2. So that means that this unit can now move across here. The way they're facing is immaterial. That's the great thing about grids. You just set your men up to look as nice and aggressive as possible. And we know that this square hasn't been searched because there's a search token. So guess what? They're going to search. However, they were on 6 dice and they're down to 5 now. So each time a unit activates, as you can see, things get a little bit more difficult, and there is a tipping point where you think this is too risky now for me to carry on, so I'll stop with that unit and move on to the next unit. So again, we need a 5 or a 6. I'd say that we should get 1, and we do, we get 2. So that is a successful search action. So we remove the search token, so that means we can't search those buildings anymore. And now we see if there's anything in there. And again, there's 9 bases as before. I'll just put a dice down to remind me that we're down to 4 action dice should that unit wish to do anything else after this. And again, we need a single 6 for there to be anything of note. And that is absolutely, I've rolled 18 dice now and found absolutely nothing. Not quite sure where these Saxons are hiding their gold, but they're not giving it up easily. So that is very, very unlucky. One would expect something to have been found in at least one of those. So this unit has 4 action dice left now. It might be worth them staying there for now rather than coming across here and getting into a fight, because these Saxons aren't necessarily there. It could be that the Saxon player decides, actually I don't fancy a fight with these guys because their general is there, and it might be that they decide to vacate into another building or wood that isn't in proximity to the enemy. So what we'll do, I think, is stop with them for now and perhaps move on to one of the other units. We know that this entire building square has got nothing in it. So let's hope for the Vikings' sake there's plenty more loot somewhere else. So this second Viking unit was here in a march column. They came up here and then into the village, and they've shaken out into a battle line, threatening that potential unit, but they're happy just to sit there now and await to see what happens. Now we'll show you what happens with a unit that's in suitable formation on a road. So on a road, if they stay on a road and they're in march column for the entirety of their turn, they can move 3 squares for free. So I think that's what they'll do without using any action dice. They can go 1, 2, 3. They've not used any of their action dice so far to do that. So this unit is a leader, a Berserker, 3 armoured, so it's actually a superior unit. 4 armoured, wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 levy, so that is a superior unit, which I think we will look to perhaps get the jump on the Saxons. They might be a little bit exposed, but whilst there's no other Saxons on the table, it might be worthwhile them just carrying on down this road. So I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to roll and see if they can make more headway. So 7 dice, looking for 3, which we achieve fairly easily. Now this is interesting because now they're up to the stream. Now instead of rolling a normal action, so we take 1 dice away, and they're down to 6 as a superior unit. They now need a 5 or 6 to cross the stream. So even though it's on a road, to cross the stream at this ford, they need a single 5 or 6. They actually get 2. So they're shaken out into a fighting formation, and now they're going to go and change into a shield wall and stop. So put a little token to denote these being in shield wall. They can't move unless they're attacking a unit in a proximity square or adjacent square, but it will just offer them protection just in case the Saxons appear. They can drop out of shield wall no problem and carry on and look to search that, but they are a little bit exposed. I may have been a bit rash in sending them so far on, but that was a very successful turn for that unit. Okay, so the last Viking unit moved from here up the road. Didn't get a free road movement because it's not all of the it didn't spend all of its turn on the road, but it did get to there and shake out also into battle line. I've realised I've forgotten any of the bonuses that the Vikings got in that pre-game sequence, so I'll try and remember to use those in the next turn. Actually, I can use one of them now, which was re-roll reinforcements. All reinforcement rolls for 1 turn. There's only 1 unit off table for the Vikings. The attacker has 4 units on the table and 1 unit off. So we might as well try and get that unit on as quickly as possible. So how reinforcements work is that the unit as a whole stays off table, and at the end of each turn you make dice rolls to see which bases are ready to come onto the table. So this is the unit that's off table in reinforcements. I'll just pull them back here. So what we're going to do is roll 5d6, which is the nominated number, and every 5 or 6 puts one of these bases into the ready area, i.e. the ready to come on. And you do that either until at the end of each turn, until all of the bases are ready, or you decide that however many you've got here is enough to do what you need to do, and you bring them on, leaving the bases that aren't in the ready area behind. Because of the bonus, we can re-roll this for one turn, so we might as well do that now. It's 5s or 6s. So what have we got there? We've got 2. So I think we will re-roll, hoping I might get 3 bases. And in fact, we just get the 2. So 2 bases go to the ready area from here. 2, 4, leaving 6 behind. That's probably what you would about expect. So that unit will remain off table for now. There's no need to bring it on just yet. So at the end of the Viking first turn, this unit searched both of these building squares, found nothing. This unit marched up the edge of the table here, as you can see, and then turned into the church. This unit absolutely galloped on and probably gone a bit further if I'd remembered one of those bonuses from the pre-game, as could this unit, but I think the Vikings are fairly happy with where we are for now. Okay, this unit, so that's the end of the Viking turn, over to the Saxon turn. And this is the only unit on table for the Saxons, who were, I was unsure whether to leave them there or perhaps move them to safety elsewhere, but that would be giving up these buildings and make searching very easy for the Vikings. So defending units appearing on the table are allowed to come on in any formation they so wish. They do lose 3 dice on the turn that they appear, so they're only going to have 3 dice to activate with. Now, I put them in shield wall because that's the best formation for them. Swinehead would have been possibly better, which is a sort of a triangular formation to punch through an enemy line. But if I fail the activation, which I'm going to roll now to try and get the Saxons to assault the Vikings, it might leave them in a bad place. So we put them into shield wall, and to assault, it's a 5 or 6 required, and we've only got 3 dice. So let's see what we get. And there's a 6. I'm not quite sure where that dice is from. That's clearly not a Peter Pig dice. It's a rogue one. That is a 6 as opposed to a piggy 6. But it's a 6 all the same. So what it does mean, happily, that the Saxons are taking the fight to the Vikings, and that's until this unit comes up. So if they hung around and did nothing, they almost certainly would be in a bit of bother. So there's 2 levy bases, 2 armoured, unarmoured, 1, 2 armoured, a champion and a leader. Now, what we could have done is issued a challenge, but we won't do that. We'll save that for later in the game. But what we've got now is an absolute bloodbath of a fight. Let's see what happens. So this is the dice for each unit in the fight. The Saxons have got a definite advantage because they are in shield wall and their opponents aren't. So they get a 3 dice bonus for that. They've got 1 base more than the Vikings anyway, and both units get a bonus. So you get 1 dice per base. There are lots of bonuses, such as having, if there's another unit that's harassing the enemy from the side, if you're gaining ground, which is as a result of a fight, if you're superior, if it's first turn of fighting, opponent not in shield wall, which the Vikings aren't. If you're hacking through, that's another outcome of an ongoing fight. If you're carrying plunder, you haven't got a leader, your opponents are uphill, or an inferior unit or in march formation. So those are the dice. We can see in fighting, you roll all the d6, and each 5 or 6 is a hit, and the owner chooses which of your own bases to risk, and it's only the front rank only. However, the fighting outcome is decided on hits and not kills, so that is a very important distinction. So here's the Saxons. Let's see what they've got. 5s and 6s, don't forget. On first assessment, that looks pretty poor. There's lots of 1s, 2s and 3s. A heck of a lot of 1s, 2s and 3s. So that's 3 hits by the Saxons. Not a betting man, but I think that is below average. Now you'd expect the Vikings to at least equal this with 10 dice. That's what the dice gods would say. Let's see. And they better it, because they have scored 4 hits. Slight correction here, we've actually got a champion in the front row here. The Vikings have got a Berserker, but because they haven't instigated the assault, they can't use him for the Berserker rule, but the Saxons certainly can, and this might just save their bacon. So how this works is, and wherever you see Berserker written in the rules, it actually covers war dogs or champions. So it's launched pre-fight, but after a successful roll has been made to start an assault. So the target, in this case the Vikings, roll 2d6 and we get an 11. Now the Berserker declares higher or lower and rolls 2d6, or the champion declares higher or lower. Clearly he's going to roll declare lower. If lower declared and successful, target has no hits placed against it, but the Berserker survives and returns to its unit. If higher declared and successful, the target has 2 hits put to it. If the Berserker does not achieve the result he has stated, the Berserker is dead. So it should be fairly safe here. So we're clearly going to go lower, and unless I roll unless I roll a 12. The Berserker will survive. It won't cause any casualties though. So, and there we go, we've rolled an 8. So it's as you were, with 4 hits to 3. So that is, I'm going to roll saves in a minute, but that means that the fight outcome, the difference is 1, which means we're in a push and shove. No morale effect inflicted, but both sides will take morale. We're just going to roll the casualties first though, and it's only casualties on the front rank. So we'll roll for the Saxons first, who have 1 hit per base, because there was 4 casualties inflicted. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to roll that champion as an armoured base. I think that is right. I think, and we'll do the same for both sides. So the champion, so armoured save on a 3-up, so he is dead. Leader next, he saves on a 2-up. Oh dear, and he is dead. This is really rather unfortunate. And then we have 2 armoured bases left in the front rank there, and they save on 3-up. And that's another one dead. So this is an absolute bloodbath. Okay, Viking saves in return will be one on the leader, who says anything but. And he's died as well, good grief. One on the armoured, he survives, and another on the armoured, and he's dead. So it's absolutely an absolute bloodbath there in the church. Okay, so as stated, absolute bloodbath there. 3 bases dead for the Saxons, 2 for the Vikings. The actual fight came out as a bit of a draw with the push and shove, but at the end of every combat, both sides have to take morale. So as we go through each mechanism, I'll demonstrate each mechanism once, and then just give you updates at the end of each turn as to how the game goes. So let's do the Saxons first with the white dice. So again, a typical Peter Pig morale system. Yeah, sorry about that, just checking the morale. So because the fight's considered a draw, both sides will take morale, and actually because a leader died, you put down 2 casualty markers, so for a dead leader. So this is an absolute bloodbath. So we've ended up with 4 dead bases for the Saxons and 3 for the Vikings, or the Danes, I should more correctly say. So let's do the Saxons first. So per dead base, you have 1d6, actually maximum of 3. There's no leader because he's now dead. There isn't an enemy on 2 or more faces. The unit isn't in march column or an inferior unit. Actually, it does become no, it's not inferior because there's not 3 levy bases. The general isn't dead. The infantry fighting and not in shield wall, no. Own unit routed in proximity, no. Gaining ground or hacking through, no. It's not a superior unit and they're not on a hill. So it's 4 dice. 4 5s and 6s are bad news. So there's 2 bad news. That means that the unit is battered. They will lose 4d6 from the next action d6. This can be superseded by a new morale result and can't reduce action dice to less than 1. So I'll just put a marker on the unit for that. So they're in pretty bad shape. Let's see how the Vikings like it. Now this could be actually worse. Even though they killed more, you only count 3 of the dead in the morale test. They've got no leader. But they are infantry fighting and not in a shield wall, so that's an extra dice there. So it's 5 dice for them, for their morale check. 4 5s and 6s are bad news. Oh dear, that's 4 failures. And we can see with 3+ failures, the unit's routes and is removed from the game. So an absolute carnage has ensued in that fight. And despite losing more casualties, the Vikings have just, well, they've lost heart and they've ran. Okay, after that shocking turn of events with the Vikings running, the Saxons can now roll for reinforcements. Now, because they've got 4 units off the table, you could roll 5d6 per unit, moving bases into the ready area, but there is an alternative method which is called the Lord Commands, where you can combine all of the dice from all of the units off the table, but then randomize which unit that applies to. So we will randomize which unit it applies to. We've got 4 units off the table, so we'll just roll the d6 and it's unit 2. So now we roll 20 dice. So we'll roll, I think what we'll do is roll 2 lots of 5. And 5s or 6s mean that there is a base in the ready area. So there's 3 bases ready there. We'll just denote that with that d6. 5 and 5, so we'll roll these next 10. Again, 5s and 6s. So that is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I think what we'll do is, there's 8 bases in the unit, but rather than wait a turn, I think what we'll do is sacrifice that 1 base that isn't ready and bring that unit on as a 7 base unit. So I'll just show you which unit it is. It's this unit here, which is actually a superior unit. What we'll do is we'll jettison the champion and bring on the other 7 bases. Okay. So the reinforcement unit here can be brought on in any peripheral square of the table, but I think up here might be wise. So the the Saxon player is going to declare that he wishes to bring on his unit in this square. Now there's a roll-off between the Saxon and the Viking player. Saxon's white, Viking is purple, and it's a draw. If the Viking had beaten the Saxon player, then let's say he rolled a 6, then the Viking player can choose to leave the arrival where it is or deviate them by 2, because there's a difference of 2 in the dice. It's got to be either none or by the difference. It can't be something in between. And because it's a draw, that means that's where they arrive. And they arrive in march formation. So they've mustered. And what it does mean is that it means that this unit now, when it activates next, has something to think about. So that is the end of the first complete turn. We've had that one fight here. This unit was rather badly mauled. We'll lose 4d6 next time it activates. Still in shield wall, didn't lose its shield wall, and routed off the Viking unit here. The first unit to activate was this Viking unit here, which searched in both squares of this building template and didn't find anything. So at the moment, things aren't looking great for the Vikings, although this Viking unit has managed to traverse virtually the whole table. It's left itself in shield wall, and this unit here is looking to also make progress down table. The Vikings only have 1 unit off table now to come on as reinforcements, and so far there's only 2 bases ready. But that is the end of the first turn. Now the game lasts for 5 turns, and either player can choose to extend the game after the 5th turn, but we'll look at that as and when the situation arises. But for the moment, I'd say it's advantage to the Saxons.